Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 326. Thank you for joining us. Today, Bonnie and I welcome Dr. Tim Collins to the Kolbecast. Dr. Collins is the president at Walsh University in North Canton, Ohio, a Newman Guide school. We get to hear a bit about Dr. Collins' background and what great things are happening at Walsh University, and what makes it unique among the Newman Guide colleges. Dr. Collins also shares his experience and wisdom in discernment and how we can always be in communication with God for guidance, especially in those big questions and decisions. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Well, it's an afternoon when we're recording here, so it's a little bit later than what we do at times, but it's been a good day and looking forward to our conversation today.
Oh, me too. And I brought my show on the road. Actually, I'm recording from a different location. If my sound sounds different today, it's because I'm not in my usual setup. I'm traveling with a daughter at a robotics competition. So hopefully all will go well. But if there are any glitches, we'll chalk it up to that. So we're pleased and grateful to get to be visiting with Dr. Tim Collins from Walsh University today. He was our commencement speaker at the 2025 Kolbe Commencement. So we will be sure to link that recording in our show notes. Welcome, Dr. Collins, to the Kolbecast.
Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Stephen. It's great to see you both today.
Thank you so much. We're glad to get our turn to talk with you. So we really very much enjoyed your speech to our 2025 graduates last year. And so for those who have not yet heard that or encountered you elsewhere, would you please tell us about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is I have 3 children, 15 grandkids, and I'm just days away on the Feast of the Sacred Heart from my 44th wedding anniversary. So everything else that follows, is just the Lord's plan. The funny thing about the Lord, I found that, most of the time his will is easy to see in the rearview mirror. It's just really hard to see in front of us. So I had a career in the Air Force. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, was a fighter pilot, did that for 23 years. Then I had a career at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. So my faculty appointment was in the Whiting School of Engineering, but I was in the Applied Physics Laboratory at the executive level my whole time there. And I retired from there and I came here to do this work in 2019 at Walsh University in North Canton, Ohio. So I've been dabbling in Catholic education for a long time. My doctoral work was in higher education, organizational change, and I studied at the feet of Father Michael Scanlon for 5 years, and he was the longtime president at Steubenville, a real authority on Catholic education. And I pretty much, when I came to Walsh, my first day, I gave each member of the cabinet, each of the vice presidents, Father's autobiography called "Let the Fire Fall." And I said, if you want to try to figure out me while I'm trying to figure out you, start there. And we'll get it. If your listeners haven't read Father's autobiography, "Let the Fire Fall," it is an amazing story, and I encourage your listeners to give that a shot. And now I'm here. I'm just finished my 7th year. We did come here for work, but we fell in love with the place somewhere around year 2, and now I'm still here. Year 7. So I'm very thankful to the Lord for giving me this opportunity.
Beautiful. Well, I was going to ask you how you came to Walsh and what keeps you there. You've addressed that already. Is there more you'd want to say about any of that?
No, yeah, I would just, the longer story of that was that in 2013, I came out of the basement and I told Brenda that we were going to have to sell the house because we were moving. And she said, well, where are we moving to? I said, I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure in prayer that this is what we're supposed to do. So we sold the house and we went into a rental property. So in 2017 at dinner, Brenda said, Tim, any thoughts here on the move? I said, nope. She said, well, maybe you got it wrong. I said, no, I definitely didn't get it wrong. I just, it's not on our time. So I guess, I don't know, I probably got that wrong. So 2019, when the opportunity came, it came out of nowhere at the last minute and went through the process and all of that. And when I have really big decisions, I discern things in a very structured way I wish I did it for all my decisions. I think my life would be happier for that, but I'm not that disciplined. But really big decisions I am. And so it's a two-step process, one where I call faith below reason, and then faith, is above reason. And so in the faith below reason, all of us do this all the time. We do pros and cons, pluses and minuses. Should I do this, that, or the other thing? And we're looking for the answer. It's either a yes or a no. And so I'm looking for a yes. And if I get that yes, then I go to the second part where I go, okay, now I go faith above reason. Like, what is it that the Lord is trying to tell me to do? How do I shut down everything and just listen and really try to figure this out? And again, I'm looking for either a yes or a no. And if I don't get an answer, I won't do anything. I'm frozen. If I get a no, I just drop it and I never talk about it again. If I get a yes, then I just lean into it and I go for it. So when I came back after the whole process, which didn't go well at the end, I didn't think, this interview process to come to Walsh. So I got home that night at the very end of the whole process, and Brenda said, so what do you think? And I said, there's just no way that is the job for me. I don't think this is what I'm supposed to do. So she said, well, go finish your discernment process. So I said, okay. So that was on like a Monday. So Wednesday night, I come out of the basement at about 8 o'clock. She's on her iPad, watching TV, doing whatever. I've got my book and my pen in my hand. And I'm like, honey, I think I just got a yes. I think, this faith above, I've got a yes, yes. And she doesn't even look up. And so she says, nothing. I said, honey, did you just hear me? I think they're gonna offer me the job. She looks over at me. She said, well, if you think they're going to offer you the job, they're going to offer you the job. So you should go finish your work. And the next day they called and offered the job. Wow. And then they said, when can you come? And I said, well, it's 8 o'clock tonight. I don't know, 2 o'clock tomorrow. And she like laughed. I said, no, I'm serious. She said, well, do you have a house to sell? I went, no,
actually,
we're ready to go. So here we go. So when we came here in 2019, it was to do the work, but we fell in love with the students. We fell in love with the campus. We fell in love with this opportunity to really help our students become the men and women that they're meant to be. And so forming men and women of character is what Walsh has been all about for 65 years. It's what we're all about. It's actually what Catholic higher education has been about for now 938 years. So 1088, the Catholic Church invented Catholic higher education, if your listeners don't know that. So in the year 1079, the Pope put out a papal bull, think of it like an email. And in there, he had like 3 main points. And one of those points that he made was it should be the church that is responsible for the development of Christian doctrine, not the emperor, not the emperor's court, the church. But how do we do that? And that's what led to the opening of the University of Bologna in 1088, was I said, okay, Holy Father, here's the answer. This is how we're going to do that. University of Bologna is still open today, 938 years later. In fact, all of those great medieval universities that all of your listeners have heard about, maybe visited, Oxford, Paris, Prague, Orleans, Heidelberg, all of them were 100% Catholic. Okay, this didn't change until after the Reformation, when Harvard College opens up in 1636. Is it opened by a Catholic? No. It's opened by a Puritan, still a Christian. They're trying to do their business, and one of the faculty members all fired up because he says, you guys are not really sticking with Christ. Of course, we've already deviated. So he says, we're going somewhere else. I'm taking a buddy with me. So Elijah Yale goes to Connecticut and opens up another one. And so eventually, of course, it's a lot of religions. But the Catholic Church, when you think about what we've been doing, I mean, the French Revolution, Catholic higher education survived the French Revolution. Now, Robespierre is not running around the campus. I'm looking. He's not there. I saw no guillotines in my parking lot when I pulled in today. So I'm pretty sure that things are good. And so if we survived that, then we can survive the rest. So really education in the sense of this idea that we're trying to get these men and women in their final years of formation ready for their purpose, to pursue their purpose. It has to be authentic, and the church is the only place you're going to find where all of it comes together, physically, emotionally, mentally, socially, intellectually, all of it. And so anybody can do some of it. Only the Catholic Church can do all of it. Anyway, so we fell in love with the place. love to have, this opportunity to put their fingerprint on our students. And then the board, has blessed me with this opportunity to stay longer. For Drenda, my bride of 44 years, she's in on this too, 100%. She came here for the students. So we have a firewall between the two of us. I don't talk about management because I don't want to poison a relationship she might have with faculty, staff, and coaches. She's in it all for the students. She does the things, of course, that, the university asks of her to, support functions and socially and all that. But her heart's not in it. I mean, she's really here for the kids. And so she doesn't talk to me about her things that are going on because she doesn't want to poison a relationship with the students with me. So if the students want to self-disclose, then that's great, but that's how they're going to have to do it. And so we don't really talk about things. And people have a hard time with that. They'll ask her, "Hey, Drenda, do you know about such and such?" She'll say no, and well, you don't want to ask Tim. And she said, "Well, Tim will just tell me to read my email." I mean, Tim's not going to tell me the answer. So we're really here, and we're very, very serious about the students. I mean, we try to be into everything, and we live on campus, so I'm 90 seconds from everything. The students love that. The faculty and staff and coaches, not so much. I see things I shouldn't see. I hear things I shouldn't hear. And because we took a house that the university had, no lay president has ever lived on campus here. When the brothers were here, they did, but none of the four guys that followed the brothers did. So this is a whole new thing. So it wanted to be a place at our home for community with small groups, that. So everything we do is, we try to do everything we can. So I'll give you an example. We have 28 athletic teams here. So obviously, if there's a home game during whatever the season is, we're going to be there if we can and support the students that are playing. But as they travel around, we, number one, Drenda and I commit to one away game that we go to for every team every season. And then if they're, going off on their away games and I'm not involved in that, I'm standing there to farewell the bus when they load up and go. And then the coaches are texting me on the way back, and I don't care if it's 2 PM or if it's 2 AM. I literally stop what I'm doing, and I'm standing on the front steps of the gym when the bus pulls in to welcome them all home. And I just want them to know that we are thinking about them, and they're away, they're doing their thing, and we're happy for them. And it's a great experience, and we're paying attention to them. And so it gives us this opportunity to really get to know the students in a really different and special way. So it's so easy to fall in love with that. When the brothers came here in 1950, Bonnie, one of the things they did, they moved here in the late 50s. 1960, we opened the door. But at the time, if we'd all been in higher education, in Catholic higher education in the 1950s, everyone would have been Catholic. Teachers, faculty, staff, students, everybody. And the brothers, they're an international congregation, the Brothers of Christian Instruction, our sponsor, and they came here and they said, we're going to go a different way. We are not going to use our Catholic faith as our litmus test. We're going to model and live our faith and let the attractiveness of that, and then as we talk to people, see if that brings people, into the faith. Kind of like Jesus did, right? I mean, he had this big public ministry for 3 years, and he just modeled. That's what he did a lot. Talked in paradox, of course. That's the voice of God. It's always a paradox. But that's another story for another day. So anyway, when the brothers opened the place, they said, we're going to go to the edge of society, the periphery, go where no one else will go, and bring people here to give them an experience that they wouldn't get anywhere else. And we're going to be Catholic. We're going to be, viciously, ferociously Catholic, but we're not going to, be Catholic and speak. We're going to be Catholic and act the way we act. And so that was a little different. And now look at Catholic education today. It's what the brothers did. You can't go anywhere and find everybody on the campus is Catholic. But you can absolutely find people that say they're Catholic, but maybe they're not acting Catholic. Catholic Church has always been about dignity, not diversity. It's always been about equality, not equity. Look, Martin Luther King never used the word equity. The culture flipped that on us somewhere, in the last 10 years. And then we've always been about solidarity, not inclusivity. I mean, at some point, being inclusive falls apart. I want to be on the football team, but I don't want to wear pads. Well, then you're not going to be on the football team. I mean, it just falls apart so fast. but we are in this together. We're all in this together. And so what the brothers did, what they created here 65 years ago, we're trying to just keep that going, be responsive to the culture, present for our students things they've never heard because the culture doesn't talk about it. So in 2020, when we had the George Floyd thing and the country was upside down over DEI and where are we going with racism and all that, the Black Student Union invited me to come and talk to them about, what is this, what does racism mean on a college campus kind of a thing. So if you're in your early 60s and you're a white guy, to go talk to the Black Student Union in the fall of 2020 about that topic, that wasn't like something I thought was really, I've been waiting to do that. You're not going to fall in love with your job if that's your, first year into it. So I prayed about it and I said, you know what, I'm just going to go talk to them at a different level, in an intellectual level. And I'm going to try to show them what the culture, something that the culture doesn't show them. I'm going to talk about it differently. Things like nuclear family. Okay, that's a word that a lot of those kids have never heard of. So we had a 90-minute conversation. Nobody was looking at their phones. It was very engaging. It was a conversation, a back and forth, unlike what's happening today. I'm just, basically talking. But at the end of the year, the students voted that as the #1 event for the whole year. And I think it was just reflective of, we just try to be a place that just talks straight. We're not going to tell you what to think. We're going to try to teach you how to think. We're going to use all these different topics, these subjects, these current events, merely as platforms to have a conversation about how we should think about this. We all know that, except for divinely revealed truth, all of us have prudential judgment. So we have to develop in our students the capacity to use that judgment wisely and properly, because otherwise they won't be happy, if you will. I think, really we're not after happiness. This is another mistake the culture makes. The culture says, if you find your purpose, you're going to be happy. Okay, well, this is not true. If I were just to say to your listeners, okay, everybody, close your eyes right now and answer this question. What makes you happy? What makes you happiest? Okay, listeners, I can't even see you, but I'm sure that what went through your mind is you are happiest when you do something for your kids, and you do something for your spouse, and you do something for your neighbor. When you hold the door open at Walmart for the little old guy that can't get through the door, you feel a surge of happiness. And the reason that is because that's how we're wired. We are supposed to serve others. This is what we're supposed to do. So what does that have to do with what your purpose is, about whatever your mission is? It has nothing to do with it. Thomas Aquinas, he's the patron saint, of course, co-patron saint now of education, along with Saint Newman, and he's a patron saint of students and universities. He tells us that it's not happiness. What's deep down when you're doing what you should be doing, it's called joy. And he says that is the central mark of a Christian, joy. And so for us, we're trying to help our students discover, uncover, recover joy. They haven't heard that. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to do at Walsh University. So that's why I fell in love, because I'm like, this is awesome. Kids, they listen to this stuff. They think about it. Do they all sign up to it? I think eventually they will, maybe not initially. They're going to have to think about some of this stuff. But many, many, many of them, I came here, we've turned out, I think, 1 or 2 priests in 60 years. I have 7 now that are in seminary. The first sister at the Ann Arbor Sisters, the Dominican Sisters, she just took her vows. She's a 2024 grad.
That's great.
So the Holy Spirit is here, and he's encouraging us to just, do what we should be doing, and people respond to that. We know that this is true about the faith. There's no way you go from 12 hand-picked guys to be your dudes. And, the day before Christ dies, one of them, completely turns on him. And the next day, there's only one left. All the rest are gone. There's only John at the cross. The rest are completely gone. So he handpicked those guys. And now we're 1 billion plus. That doesn't happen unless people respond.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of my things that I really enjoy doing is talking to the various Newman Guide schools, because, I think we're seeing some of this, but it seems like the ones that have survived, that are still around, all clearly have a charism, a particular way in which they approach things or mission that they have. So I'm a Thomas Aquinas College guy from back in the day, so I'm very clear about what you're doing there. And
Yeah.
Christendom has their own way of doing things. Franciscan has their own way of doing things. What's that for Walsh? Would you, if you, for somebody who's not familiar
Yeah.
with
Yeah, well, I think for not familiar, I think that's a great point, Stephen. So, you think about the Acts of the Apostles. I mean, what happened is they would move around, they would spread the gospel, and the locals would all come to them. They'd share the information, and then they'd go back and they would do it their own way. So this idea that we would sort of be a little different but be the same, has run the course for 2,000 years. So the Cardinal Newman schools are really like Swiss cheese, right? So we're not like a block of, cheddar cheese. We're Swiss cheese. We all are in different size, shapes, and, colors and holes and all that, but we're all still kind of doing the same thing. And there's only 16 of us, which is sort of, really bad when you think about 215 of them in the country. Only 16 are, trying. And we're all different. So Steubenville, of course, is in our backyard, 90 minutes away. Two of my children are graduates from Steubenville. And of course, Father Mike, I told, I'm a big fan of that. But as Father Dave says, who's, their president now, and he and I go back a long way, is, they have their own brand. And so, for Walsh, our brand is really this wide open aperture of students from a variety of backgrounds. Many of them are poor, disadvantaged backgrounds. Half the students are, on the poverty, Pell eligible kind of thing. And probably, a portion of our kids aren't sure if Catholic starts with a C or a K. And that's okay, right? We do what we do because the institution is Catholic, not because all of our students are Catholic. The brothers did not create this here, right? Christ created this. The brothers took this on as a project, and now we're trying to build on it. But this is the Lord's project. And Stephen, as you mentioned, all of the Cardinal Newman schools, are doing just fine. And that's because we are very focused on what's authentic and true and what's worked for 938 years. But we just express it differently. I mean, your experience at TAC is different than what a Walsh student would get, for sure. So I think for us, we tend to be sort of that blue collar kind of place in a sense, but we're still full spectrum. So we now have National Merit Scholar, authority to go and do that. The Air Force has now given us the authority to have full ROTC scholarship. So it's not that we're intellectually not hacking it, but we have a lot of students here that aren't that gifted. But they're going to go into a world where they have to work with gifted people. And our gifted people have to go into a world that have to work with people that aren't as gifted. So everybody's kind of got a piece of this and how we work with each other. So I would say that one of the things, in our brand, if you will, it tends to be less obvious to everyone that, faith is like crazy. But the place is crazy about faith. But, we're trying to bring them in and work with them and just let them see the joy that we have in our work and how well we prepare kids. We've got our physical therapy programs, top 10 in the nation. Our nursing is, top 1 or 2 in the whole state of Ohio. So, we have great programs. We have good programs. But we're not known for any one thing, if that makes any sense at all. I think most of the other Cardinal Newman schools are known for like one thing. And of the Cardinal Newman schools, we are the only ones with a College of Health Sciences. So nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, those kinds of things. We're the only Cardinal Newman school that is, really all in on that kind of stuff. I think this will change a little bit as Benedictine College opens up their medical school, and that'll change the landscape. But I would say that that's sort of what we do. Is it's a little more mainstream, which presents a whole different set of challenges. Steubenville does not have to convince their kids that Catholic's right. We do. And I take that as that's a good thing, because you know what? They're going to go out into the world, and if they're going to evangelize in any way, shape, or form, they're going to have to convince other people. So you might as well get a couple years of practice here. And let us show you how you can maybe do this. And maybe you'll pick up a technique or two along the way where you can, help other people come to this realization. The culture wants to say, public schools want to say, Why would we teach our kids to believe things they cannot see? To which I say, can you see the wind? Can you see electricity? You hear a ding on your computer. Did you see your email land in your computer? I think you can teach people to believe things they cannot see. So we have a lot of work to do, and it's hard work. But the funny thing is, the Lord never said this was going to be like easy. Bring me your tired and let me carry your yoke, and all. And He knew this was going to be hard.
Right.
So there's sanctification in the work itself, just working. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so our culture wants to say it's the easy street, sit around, don't do anything, just have somebody else, pay your expenses. Church has never felt that way. Like it's our job to, lean in and make things happen. But nothing happens that the Lord has intended unless it's done by a human being. We have to actually do things.
Yeah.
Now he's going to help set the conditions, but as Father Mike used to say, Father, what if I don't do what the Lord wants me to do? What if, sometimes I'm a little hard-headed on stuff. I won't shut up because Bonnie wants to ask a question. And he says, that's okay, Tim, because you just decide you're not going to do plan A. He'll wait for plan B. Okay, what if I don't do plan B? He's got plan C. Okay, what about if I don't do that? Well, plan D. He's really, really patient. So eventually you'll come around. I think he's right. I mean, eventually I do come around.
I know I had been to University of Mary before I had really heard about all the good things you're doing there, and so there were when I started researching your Walsh University, it's like, oh, and Monsignor Shea was talking about we are a Catholic university solidly, but we are also a North Dakota university, and we bring all of these people in, but we're going to be authentically Catholic. And there's just a lot of, it seems like, I was seeing that you have probably about half of your student population is Catholic, a lot of them from that area. It's like, okay, this is that serving your community, serving but really being with all of the masses and the adoration that you have there. It's, authentically Catholic, but
yeah, I love hearing Bishop Barron's story about when he was the rector at Mundelein, and he didn't really, didn't know a lot about this devotion with adoration, and the seminarians taught him that. And of course, Fulton Sheen was strong on that. He said, you become what you see. So, sit in front of the Lord, and that's what you'll become. So our students are seriously into this. So we do adoration every day of the week. We do it 30 minutes before weekday masses, Holy Mass, and then on our Sunday 2 masses, Holy Masses, we do it for an hour. And then Monday to Friday, it's, from early in the morning to late at night. We spend overnight all the way through Thursday night, all run by the students, all of it. And, Monsignor Shea, of course, I love him and the way he thinks. And, I could listen to him talk all day long for sure. But, he has a very similar population. So for us, 86% come from Ohio. You're right, Stephen. About half, we think. The shocker is if Bonnie says, Tim, what is the population of how many of your students are Catholic? I'll say, I don't know. And your listeners right now, click, don't hang up, come back. Because I know you think that's crazy that I wouldn't know that in this role. But do your listeners know that last year, 40% of college students entering would not identify their sex? Okay, so if they're not going to, it's not that they don't know what their sex is, they're just not going to tell you.
Sure.
So if they feel that way about sex, how do you think they feel about their faith? So I don't believe any of it. It's not that they don't know. They do know. And the research has shown Austin, big longitudinal study, been about 4 decades old, looks just at the spiritual component of college kids. In the last 10 years, the data has turned. This idea that they go to college and they lose their faith is not true. They've actually lost their faith already at home, and the parents don't realize it because the students don't have a choice. So I tell parents all the time, if you think they come at the end of August and they don't go to church on Sunday of Labor Day weekend, that's Walsh's fault. I don't think so. I think it's your fault. This is the first time they had a choice and they made it. So on the faith side of it, I don't know what it is. exactly. But I do observe, Stephen, you're right. It's slightly more than half is what I observe. We don't have standing room only 6 a.m. Holy Mass, but we have 11 o'clock daily Mass, and there's probably 50 kids in there. And that's good for me. I'll get that going. We had our resident halls. We have 10 resident halls. It was about 72% occupancy. We changed everything, put more emphasis on Christ, more emphasis on faith, more emphasis on how we live out our faith. We're at 96% occupancy right now.
That's great.
And people respond to that. And then I just am hopeful. Of course, we know hope is a person, so this is easy to do for us, that as they leave, even if they don't make that decision about their faith, it will eventually come along. And the Austin data shows us by their third year in college, students are clearly recognizing the culture's got something wrong and I'm missing something in my life. And they're leaning on the spiritual side. Most of them are returning to the faith tradition that they grew up with, but they want to live it differently. We see this in the Catholic space. It's my opinion that the youth have rejected the parish structure. They don't want to come out of college. They want to help. They want to get involved in their parish. But, the 6 Knights of Columbus guys around Father Pete tell them, come back and we'll tell you when to set up the tables for the picnic. And that's not what they're thinking. And so they are self-forming, Theology on Tap and Young Professional Network and all these other things they're making happen because they know that they've got this other component that they're not going to find purpose and meaning in their life till they get their arms around how important the spiritual component is to how they live their life. And once they solve that, they learn about commitment and they think about gratitude and they just run through the Beatitudes, for crying out loud. When they see that and they go, oh my gosh, it's all around me, even though it's a paradox, but they got to figure that out, that, life doesn't get easier, but it gets better. It's still going to be hard. We still have to have hard choices. Life is hard. The culture has stopped telling students this. Any student listening, life is hard. Okay? That's just how it is. But we're all in it together. And there's lots of people to include, just that personal relationship you have, that conversation you have with Christ himself. If you just would, stop, be quiet. But what Fulton Sheen used to say, do any of you guys go into the doctor's office and just blah, 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 all your problems and then go running out? Or do you then just stop and shut up and listen for a minute? We just should all be doing a little more listening. We'd probably be a little happier. So these are the kinds of things that, we're trying to instill in our students, habits, that allow for quiet and peace. And, our chapel is not a circus before or after Holy Mass. It's a quiet, reverent, reserved space. And we have a little sign up, when you come in, please be quiet. This is sacred space. And some of the clergy, they're not too happy about that. They don't like that. I say, we're an educational institution. Nobody's told them that, hey, Jesus is right over there. The reason you're whispering is because you're not supposed to be talking. So, be respectful of everyone else, maybe yourself. How about just, for a minute, be quiet and see what the good Lord wants to say. How are you going to recognize the shepherd's voice if you're never even listening for it? So we want to set up those places, those conditions, those environments for our students to experience. Because I think the three of us, once you've seen it, you know it. And you've experienced it, you know it. Again, it doesn't mean life's going to be any easier. Still going to be hard, but it gets we have a more capacity to handle what's going on and put it in context of trying to find the good.
I wanted to tie in discernment in a way here, I guess, because when you're first talking about how you were discerning and this, you've just kind of brought that back in. And is that something that, well, it sounds like that's something that you really brought in your leadership of Walsh, that's an important aspect of the community as well, or something underlying. Am I right about that?
It is. If I would discern more, sometimes, I think the vice presidents, they sort of get frustrated. We're dealing with something that's really hard. And if I don't get an answer, I won't do anything. So we'll just wait. And I've even reversed course. So I'll give you a perfect example. We had decided we were going to do something and we were going to go that way. And so I was really had a lot of angst about it. Like, okay, is that really what I'm supposed to be doing? So we're on a drive. We left early on a Sunday morning, and we're making our way from central Northeast Ohio up to Mackinac Island in upper Michigan. It's about 7 a.m. We're traveling northbound towards Cleveland, and you can see dark skies in the west. And it's pretty quiet, 7 in the morning. We're not exactly two chatty Cathys in the car. It's just like, okay, we're just sort of getting started on this trip, listening to the radio. So I get on the turnpike and I'm heading west, and it's kind of quiet. And I'm really just struggling with, I know I made this decision. I try not to look backwards, like, let's just execute it and then we'll adjust. We haven't executed yet. So we're holding off for a couple reasons for a couple more days. I now understand why that was. So we're going across this big valley, and all of a sudden in front of us comes this rainbow, and it's from one end to the other. And I turned to Dren, I said, look at that rainbow. And she says, that's amazing. And I'm thinking to myself, are you trying to tell me something? And bang, a second rainbow shows up miniature on top of the first rainbow. And I say, Brenda, do you see anything else in front of us? And she goes, like that other rainbow? That's crazy. I said, that's not crazy. He's talking to me. I hit my button. I called my vice president. Stop. We're not supposed to do that. Stop, stop, stop. But that's part of discernment. What are the signs and symbols? How is he talking to us? Sometimes it can't be his voice. Fulton Sheen called your conscience, God's messenger. And that's how he's going to talk to you internally. But sometimes, there's little reasons why that's a struggle. So you'll hear it or you'll see it in some other ways. It's like miracles. People say, I've never seen a miracle. I said, you see a miracle every single day. Do you have any kids? Do you have a loved one? I can guarantee you there's a miracle that rolled out in front of you today. You just didn't recognize it. It's like opportunity. We always recognize opportunity in the rearview mirror. We don't recognize it in front of us. It's the same thing with faith. And so discernment is a necessary component of everything you're doing. If I would do more of it, I'm sure we would be, better off. I'd be a happier father, grandfather, husband, all of that. But I know when I make the time, and we try to encourage people, take the time. We don't, even a major decision at the university, we have a data decision thing. We take one meeting where we do all the data and talk about it, and then we step away from it for 2 weeks. And then we come back for a decision, and that's our discernment time. All of us have to think about it, reflect on it, pray about it. What is it that we are supposed to do? And then come back and try to find it. And so we have found a lot of success with taking the time. Nothing's that rushed. Christ has been working on this project for 2,000 years, and some moments I'm not sure it's going so well, but yet he keeps after it. So we should follow that. Say it's okay. We can wait 2 weeks.
So do you find when you are in a mode to not make a move, are you sort of at this point sort of tuned in to the word that's coming to mind is kind of fruits. Like, what fruit is this bearing by continuing to hold off on a decision? Or is this, how do you know that this is, I should have made a different decision a while ago, but you spoke to that with the rainbow story. But when you have a real strong sense of, I'm not supposed to make a decision quite yet, is that the result of a lot of tuning into various indicators that you learn to notice? Or is it, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think, the stronger we are in our prayer life and our willingness to sort of take the humility pill and step back for a minute, then I think the easier it becomes to delay a decision.
Okay.
Because we're trying to make sure we're following his will, not my will. I could do my will in like 3 seconds. I can tell you exactly what to do. But is that the right thing to do for this moment? And so, I've gone to daily mass for a long, long time. And so I'm a Purple Heart recipient. I was on the receiving end of a truck bomb in Saudi Arabia, and 19 people around me died, and I didn't. And so daily mass before that bombing, there were 3 of us. Daily mass after that bombing, the firemen had to position equipment outside the chapel because it wasn't big enough to handle all the people, and we weren't going to tell the troops they can't go to church. Wow. So I think that, if I don't hear an answer, then I just assume that I'm not listening for it. See, the Lord only has three answers, Bonnie, to our prayers, I think. My opinion on this is the Lord is either going to say yes, or he's going to say not yet, or he's going to say, I have something better. I am unaware of the Lord ever telling me no.
Okay.
So I'm just really trying to figure out which one of those three am I hearing and then figure out what to do about it. So I think this is just, trying to dial in, but we have to be willing to surrender and say, okay, maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am. It's not to say that every decision is painful. It's not. I mean, the Lord equips us to, use our experience and our judgment to, do the right thing. So that's why we want to form men and women of character in Catholic higher education, so that they can have high confidence that their decision making is solid. They have the right formation, they have the right understanding, they can make the right calls. But on those big decisions, and we all know when they're big, I think it is better to put a little more attention on it and go a little slower. You generally will get there faster.
Yeah. Okay.
Than being too quick on the draw. So that I guess that's how I feel about discernment. I think it is just a necessary part of our conversation with Christ. And if we're in a conversation, then discernment's not hard. But if you're not in a conversation, that personal relationship that the church tells us is so urgently important, and it's important in education. We have to teach people that. And so I think the Cardinal Newman schools, the recommended colleges, we all have a view on that and how to do that, and have to do it in different ways, different students, different populations, and I think that that's a good thing. Sure. I don't see the harm in that.
No. Well, that kind of leads me into a question that came out of the address you gave to the Kolbe graduates of the class of 2025, encouraging them to reject rejection, and in facing adversity, like knowing that life is hard, and this commencement being a beginning, right? This is, you're going to accomplish something and then you're going to move on to something else, and that may very well be difficult, and it likely will, right? Lots of hard things yet to come. Yeah. And sort of our human tendency to wish for the easier path. And maybe even as parents, like I want to make kind of smooth the way for my children, or just knowing though that how important it is for us to instill in them a sense of their own, like, you can do this. And they learn that by doing that, right? So maybe speaking to that whole sense of facing adversity, heading into it knowing with a sense of ability, I guess.
Well, I would encourage all of the listeners, all of the parents, as your children age, and let's just take I'm coming at this through the lens of higher education. By the time your kids are in college, we as parents need to have an honest conversation with ourselves on when do we step back? When do we let our kids learn how to stand up for themselves? When do we disengage in some sense from their lives and not make their fights our fights? Yeah. I mean, in this culture, we have to fight a lot. We fight with the car dealer, we fight with the dry cleaner, we fight, it's just part of this. That's what makes it hard, because, on some level, none of us want to fight. So for the parents, they have to be willing to step back, and things that look like the end of the world might just be a softball. Okay, let it fall. Most of these things that are happening in the lives of our children are rubber balls. So our challenge as parents, as we transition from being parents of high school kids to parents of college kids, as we transition from being parents to grandparents, it's about trying to understand what's a rubber ball and what's a crystal ball. And, don't let the glass one break, but the rubber one will bounce back. So let it bounce. And let the kids learn how to build resilience and be tough. All of us fail. That's the rejection part that I talked about. We're going to be rejected. All of us will fail, but we have to choose to get back up. We have to choose to go another way. Christ, in picking the apostles, you might argue that he picked the wrong guys, but then you might have to say, well, but actually they all got back up. Look at Peter. He's the perfect example of a guy who got back up and just kept going. And this is the Lord of mercy. This is the good news here, that it's okay. Get back up. It's fine. He doesn't even remember why you fell down. We remember. He doesn't remember. So I think that, in that perspective, it used to be we called parents in education that they were helicopter parents. And some of your listeners may have heard this before. You're kind of hanging over your kids and watching everything they do. And in education today, we call the parents bulldozer parents, because they come in and bulldoze everything away. They want everything exactly right for Sally or Johnny. Nothing can be anything but perfect. That is not the real world. So as parents, our fundamental choice is either we can discipline our children in how to have good habits and how to think, or the world will. The world will discipline them, and it's not going to be near as effective as what we can do. From the Catholic perspective, of course, the parents are the primary educators. That's why we love homeschoolers, because they have embraced that fully in being the primary educators of their children. It's our job in Catholic education, Catholic higher education, Catholic education anywhere, is to build on what the parents are doing, to supplement, to add to, not do instead of. But that, of course, presupposes the parents are trying to do the right thing. So I'm not saying we ignore things that, are wrong or unhealthy, but I am saying that you don't do this independently on your own and as a secret. And so for the homeschoolers, for those parents where, like, my youngest, he's raising the kids, he's all in on this education. All of our homeschool kids we have homeschoolers here. They come here, they thrive. They're the leaders of the place. This is all nonsense. And they'll never blend in. That's just total nonsense. They've had the values of their parents instilled in them. They're going to live that out. They're already, up one over everyone else, where it got, outsourced to a different set of values every time they went to class. Every year they had a different set of values they had to learn and deal with, or no values, as the case might be. So they thrive in that environment. So for the parents thinking about how to do that and how to manage, for some, they might have to, disengage later than others. But, it wasn't that long ago, 3 weeks before graduation, I have a parent calling in, complaining about some issue her son is having on the transcript. And he graduates in 3 weeks from college and goes to work for this company. Are you going to new employee orientation with him? I mean, at some point, you're going to have to back up. And I think if you can do that while they're off in college, while they're still surrounded by some safety nets and some boundaries in a place that you trust, that it's easier to do. I'm not saying it's easy to do. I'm not saying that. And every student is different and every issue, but the parents are the judge of that. But they have to consciously judge, this is a rubber ball or this is a glass ball. And then that should help set the vector on, do I do something other than coach, teach, love, all that? And it might be you just have to hear the whole story out, give them a big hug, whisper in their ear, okay, you got hammered. Now get back up.
Yeah. And that was kind of where I was headed next, is imparting that to our kids. Like, we know this is hard for you and we're here for you. And this is yours to do. This is your work, your lesson to learn. We are here for you. We can't do it for you.
That's why homeschoolers are so awesome, because that's what most parents do. Okay, you have to do the math problem, not me. But I'm going to make sure you get the math problem done.
Yeah.
And they learn that. And it's sometimes is stressful and it's hard. And everyone, we lived overseas, as I mentioned, they were in international schools, but they came home and still found themselves in school at home, because there were things that we thought they needed to learn that they weren't teaching in the school, and we weren't willing to abdicate our responsibilities. So our kids basically had, double school. Oh, well, you don't have anything else to do in life but learn how to grow up anyway. That's your job. So,
and they thank you for it now, I'm sure.
Yeah, they do. Except for math.
Well,
stress balls. I think that's where all that was invented, was in my house. So I just would encourage everyone, when they're in that hunt, just a cheap plug, CatholicHigherEd.com, CatholicHigherEd.com.
Yeah.
That is my personal website. And I have some things in there that I think about that might be useful to students and families as they're trying to figure out if they want Catholic higher education. I sort of make that as the assumption. A little work, because if you're going to go visit schools, what kinds of things should you look for? I have 15 signal features that come out of my research. Look for these kinds of things. When you're being walked around a campus, ask your student ambassador these 3 questions. But the parents, the families, the students, they have to judge for themselves what the answers were and how they think about that. So I try not to be, I try to be objective about it and not say it's only this way, because it's not, because it's Swiss cheese. But, the individual, the person, their personality, that's all got to be factored into it. Is it a good fit, or, big school, small school, cold school like you, Mary, or you want to go to Ave Maria because you don't want to wear anything but shorts and flip-flops. I mean, I think that, you got to work your way through that too. Or
Yes.
California, out in Napa, where that's where you've been doing whatever. So, but I do encourage, this is not an easy task, trying to figure out where to open the doors of an opportunity for your children to higher education, because it might look one way on the outside, but you got to really figure out, does the inside looking out, is that the same as the outside looking in? And that's a hard thing to do. So I wouldn't take that for granted. I pay no attention to these master lists like US News and World Report because of the methodology. They give you a high score the more times you say no to a student that wants to go there. Well, Catholic higher education has been about saying yes. It's not about saying no. So we're never going to do well on their methodology. So you sort of have to understand what you're looking at. So I just ignore that list completely. And this is what I like about the Cardinal Newman list. They just say straight up, look, we have an apostolic constitution called Ex Corde. This is what Catholic education is. Yes or no? I think it was Cardinal George, he would say all this conversation on conservative and liberal and progressive, why can't we just use true false?
Mm-hmm.
Something to be said for that. So it's a tough thing, finding the right fit. A third of all students are not graduating where they started. And then if you look into the data, about 80% of them end up at the other school that was on their list. So I can't prove this, but I think there's a conflict between the head and the heart. You're feeling this, but the math says that, or whatever. So I just encourage everyone, keep the heart in the conversation. Now, the heart can lie to you. I thought Doris was my girl. I'm going to marry her. I love her. And she dumped me. Okay, my heart did not call that right. So we have to pay attention to that too. But if your student is talking about transferring, that's not abnormal. That's normal. And so trying to find the right fit is a really challenging problem. I'd encourage your student to stick it out through the whole first year. And just don't, by September say, this isn't for me. I really need, I don't know. Because a lot of thinking probably went into how they landed there in the first place. And every transition is hard. It could be the perfect place. It's still good. Look at all of us, if you got married, they talk about it. There's a honeymoon, and then the honeymoon ends. And so that's the same thing with college. There's a honeymoon, and the honeymoon will end. Usually it's lined up with finals, but that's a whole nother story.
Yes. It seems like that, again, goes right along with that discernment process. I know in our family here, as our kids have been going through college, there's this questioning of, is this the right fit still? Is this still where you're called to be and called to be doing right now? And one was, yes, no, this is hard, and I don't love all this, but another was like, no, I know what I need to do, and it's not here. I need to switch. And it's like, okay, let's do it then. Yeah.
Yeah, it was my kids too, same thing. All 3 of them transferred. That's actually what got me into this whole thing was, I felt like I'd done a good job as a dad in helping them find the right spot. And then they're all out there independently on their own, finding a place. And I said, okay, I failed them. Why did I fail them? What is it that I didn't understand? And so that's what got me interested in this whole field of Catholic education and where it's going. And all of my research was all about, because it's so disruptive, as you know, Stephen, when they change schools, it's financially, it's socially, it's academic, it's just a huge disruption. And I came to find out that, things are not always as they say they are. My kids found that out. They got there and figured out that's not what you guys said this was. And they were thankfully, brave enough to go through the pain of a change. And then all three, they landed at Steubenville and, lived happily ever after.
There again, though, they knew to face that adversity. So we wanted to be able to do that. All right. As we're wrapping up our time together, anything that we didn't get to yet that you wanted to be sure we cover, or anywhere where the conversation moved on before you got to say what you wanted to about that?
No, I appreciate the opportunity just to talk. And, I applaud all you all. I think what you're doing, I'm a big fan of the Kolbe and what y'all are doing and been doing for a long time. And the homeschooling thing. I mean, running a family, working, going to school, I mean, right there in the house. I mean, this is huge. But I will say this to your families, Bonnie and Stephen, and to you both. There is nothing more rewarding than everything you're doing, that feeling you're going to have when this is all done. I mean, you're all in. You're going to make sure that your kids are prepared for life as you understand it and see it, and are not willing to let, the culture drive this. You're driving it. All your parents, the homeschoolers, are driving it. And I just, applaud that, as I know how hard that is to do. There's a lot of people that would love to do homeschooling and they can't. And for lots of reasons that are, their life situation or whatever. And I know they look somewhat with envy, I suppose, on the homeschooling population, like you get to do that. But you guys understand how hard this is, right? It looks all sexy and glamorous on the outside, but on the inside, it's really hard work. But I can tell you, the students that come here, I can pick a homeschooler out a mile away because of how good they are. And I've not found here at Walsh, we've not found this experience where, there's social issues or something. None of that's true. Because they've been doing the social thing in their families. It's like they've not been living on an island for 18 years, for goodness sakes. They do know how to, share a bathroom and things like that. This is sort of what they do. So just let them be them. And it's really heartwarming. There was a time in my life when it was, darn near illegal to do what you all are doing. Right. And I think there's a sense now in the country they're trying to sort of take it away from us and make it illegal. They don't want family values. The culture wants to, have control over what our kids know and don't know. And it's the end of our whole 250-year experiment if the government is successful with this, or others are successful with this. So a little bit, you guys are holding the light for all the rest of us. And I just want to say thank you for that.
So you mentioned the hard part of this, but this is one of those areas with joy too. Having homeschool all our life, is it hard at times? Yes, but there's no other thing that I'd rather have done with.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your words there, Dr. Collins. It's very encouraging, and all you've offered to us in our conversation today. And our show notes will have links to Walsh University and your website as well, CatholicHigherEd.com. We'll link the Kolbecast episode 265, where you spoke to our class of 2025 last year. We'll look forward to learning more about Walsh, hopefully make a visit there, and appreciate, again, you being here today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Invite anyone just to come check us out, look around, or just give us a thought. Or even if you aren't interested in Walsh and you're just trying to figure something out, call me, tcollins@walsh.edu. Send me an email, tcollins@walsh.edu. I'm quite happy to help anybody, find their way. And so it doesn't have to be Walsh. It can just be you're trying to figure something else out. Well, if I can be of any help to anybody, any of your listeners, just send me an email. Happy to lean in. It's all for the greater good. We give all the glory to God for all that we're able to do. And we're just thankful for this opportunity to have the gift of education, in our society. And so congratulations to you all. And thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for that as well.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad maiorem Dei gloriam.